The story begins by introducing Frank Dux, a disciplined U.S. Army captain whose life has always been shaped by martial arts and honor. Although he serves in the military, his greatest dream is not to earn medals on the battlefield, but to prove himself in the world's most secret and dangerous fighting tournament known as the Kumite. This underground competition is held in Hong Kong, where the strongest martial artists from different countries fight with almost no rules. Some fighters leave as champions, while others never leave the arena at all. Frank receives an invitation that only the most skilled warriors can earn, but there is one major problem. His military commanders refuse to give him permission to go because they believe the tournament is illegal and far too dangerous. Frank knows that obeying orders would mean abandoning the promise he made to his beloved martial arts teacher. Choosing honor over military discipline, he secretly leaves his base and begins his journey to Hong Kong, fully aware that the army will try to capture him before he reaches the tournament. The film then takes the audience back into Frank's childhood to explain why this tournament means everything to him. Years earlier, young Frank and his friends had sneaked into the home of a respected Japanese martial arts master named Senzo Tanaka. While the other boys wanted to steal a valuable katana sword, Frank showed honesty by trying to return it instead of running away. Tanaka noticed the courage in the young boy because Frank did not panic even when a sharp sword was placed near his face. Impressed by his character, Tanaka decided that Frank possessed the spirit of a true warrior. Instead of punishing him, he offered him something far more valuable than any weapon: the opportunity to train under one of the greatest martial arts masters. From that day onward, Frank's life completely changed as he entered a world of discipline, sacrifice, and relentless training that very few people could survive. Training under Senzo Tanaka was nothing like ordinary martial arts practice. Every lesson pushed Frank beyond his physical and mental limits. He learned balance, patience, speed, and absolute control over fear. Tanaka believed that strength alone could never create a champion. A true fighter needed discipline, respect, and the ability to remain calm even in the face of death. Frank trained alongside Tanaka's son, Shingo, and the two boys developed a close brotherly bond. However, tragedy eventually struck the Tanaka family when Shingo passed away, leaving the old master without an heir to carry on his ancient martial arts tradition. Realizing Frank's loyalty and dedication, Tanaka accepted him as the successor to his family's legacy. Frank promised that he would protect and honor everything his teacher had taught him, a promise that would later guide every decision he made. Years later, after completing his training and becoming an accomplished martial artist, Frank finally receives the invitation he has dreamed about for years. The invitation grants him entry into the legendary Kumite, a tournament whispered about only among elite fighters. Many people believe it is just a myth because almost nobody outside the martial arts world has ever witnessed it. The competition gathers champions from every corner of the globe, each representing a different fighting style, and each determined to prove that they are the strongest warrior alive. Winning the Kumite would make Frank a legend, but failure could cost him his life. Even knowing these terrifying risks, Frank never hesitates because to him, keeping his promise to Tanaka is more important than his own safety. Meanwhile, Frank's disappearance creates chaos inside the military. His commanding officers quickly realize that he has gone absent without permission, and immediately begin searching for him. Two determined army investigators are assigned to track him down before he reaches Hong Kong. They understand that Frank is highly trained, intelligent, and capable of escaping almost any pursuit. Their mission becomes a race against time as they gather clues and follow his trail across international borders. Frank knows they are coming after him, but every obstacle only strengthens his determination. Instead of turning back, he continues moving toward Hong Kong, believing that destiny has already chosen his path. After arriving in Hong Kong, Frank immediately feels the city's fast pace and vibrant atmosphere. It is completely different from the disciplined environment of the military. Fighters from many different countries are arriving, each carrying unique techniques and reputations. During his first days in the city, Frank meets Ray Jackson, a loud, fearless American fighter with incredible physical strength and an outgoing personality. Jackson quickly befriends Frank after realizing they both share the same goal of competing in the Kumite. Although their personalities are completely different, they develop mutual respect and encourage each other before the dangerous tournament begins. Their friendship adds both humor and emotional support to the intense atmosphere surrounding the competition. As they prepare for the tournament, stories about the reigning champion begin spreading among the competitors. His name is Chong Li, and every fighter speaks of him with fear. Unlike honorable martial artists who respect their opponents, Chong Li enjoys humiliating and seriously injuring anyone who stands in his way. His brutal victories have made him the most feared competitor in the Kumite, and many believe nobody can defeat him. Frank listens carefully to these stories without showing fear. Deep inside, he understands that if he truly wants to honor Tanaka and become the world's greatest fighter, he will eventually have to face the ruthless champion. The anticipation of this inevitable showdown slowly builds as the tournament draws closer. The first part of the story concludes with Frank standing on the edge of the greatest challenge of his life. Behind him lies years of sacrifice, painful training, and an unbreakable promise to his mentor. Ahead of him waits the secret Kumite, where every opponent possesses extraordinary skills and where one mistake can end a fighter's career, or even his life. At the same time, army investigators are closing in on his location, creating another dangerous obstacle outside the arena. With his destiny approaching and the world's most feared martial artists gathering in one place, Frank prepares himself for a battle that will test not only his strength, but also his courage, discipline, and honor. The legendary tournament is finally about to begin. The following morning, Frank Dux and Ray Jackson arrive at the hidden location where the legendary Kumite is about to begin. The entrance is heavily guarded and only fighters with official invitations are allowed inside. As Frank presents his invitation, the guards immediately recognize the Tanaka clan seal and respectfully allow him to enter. Walking through the massive underground arena, Frank realizes that everything he had heard about the Kumite is true. Fighters from every corner of the world are warming up, each representing a unique martial arts style. Some specialize in karate, others in kung fu, muay thai, wrestling, taekwondo, and various forms of street fighting. Every competitor has spent years preparing for this moment, and the atmosphere is filled with confidence, pride, and silent determination. The audience surrounding the arena is equally mysterious, made up of wealthy spectators and martial arts enthusiasts who have traveled from around the world to witness the greatest fighters compete in complete secrecy. Before the official matches begin, the organizers perform a traditional ceremony to honor the history of the Kumite. Every fighter is reminded that the tournament is built on courage and respect, but it quickly becomes clear that not everyone follows those values. Frank quietly observes his future opponents, carefully studying their techniques instead of showing off his own abilities. His calm attitude immediately attracts attention because most fighters are trying to intimidate each other before the competition even starts. Ray Jackson, however, has a completely different approach. He jokes with the other competitors, proudly talks about his strength, and confidently claims that nobody can stop him. His loud personality entertains the crowd, but Frank knows that overconfidence can become dangerous once the real fighting begins. Despite their differences, the two friends promise to support each other throughout the tournament. The opening rounds finally begin, and the audience witnesses incredible displays of martial arts skill. Fighters deliver lightning-fast kicks, devastating punches, powerful throws, and acrobatic combinations that leave spectators amazed. Frank's first opponent is an experienced martial artist who attacks aggressively from the opening seconds, hoping to overwhelm him with speed. Instead of rushing forward, Frank patiently studies every movement before launching a perfectly timed counterattack. His precise strikes and exceptional balance allow him to dominate the fight without wasting unnecessary energy. Within moments, he defeats his opponent with remarkable efficiency, earning the respect of the judges and surprising many experienced spectators. Unlike several other competitors, Frank refuses to continue attacking after victory is secured, demonstrating the discipline that Master Tanaka taught him years ago. As the tournament progresses, another fighter captures everyone's attention for completely different reasons. Chong Li enters the arena with absolute confidence, his intimidating presence silencing both competitors and spectators. His muscular physique, cold expression, and fearless attitude immediately separate him from everyone else. When his match begins, Chong Li overwhelms his opponent with terrifying power. Every punch and kick lands with brutal force, leaving little opportunity for defense. Even after securing victory, he continues attacking the helpless fighter until officials finally intervene. Instead of showing remorse, Chong Li proudly raises his fists while the frightened crowd watches in silence. His cruelty sends a clear message to every participant. Anyone standing in his path should expect no mercy. Frank watches the entire fight carefully, realizing that defeating Chong Li will require far more than physical strength. Between matches, Frank attracts the attention of an American journalist named Janice Kent, who has secretly entered the tournament hoping to expose the mysterious Kumite to the outside world. She is fascinated by Frank because he appears disciplined, respectful, and completely different from the violent competitors surrounding him. Janice attempts to interview him, asking why he would risk his life in such a dangerous competition. Frank politely avoids revealing too much, explaining only that he is honoring a promise made to someone very important. Although Janice remains curious, she begins to admire Frank's calm confidence and genuine humility. Their brief conversation adds a lighter moment to the otherwise intense atmosphere inside the arena. Meanwhile, the two army investigators finally arrive in Hong Kong after following Frank's trail across several locations. They interview hotel staff, local residents, and airport employees, hoping someone has seen the missing soldier. Every clue brings them closer to discovering the secret tournament, but the Kumite organizers are experts at hiding their activities from outsiders. The investigators become increasingly frustrated because Frank always seems to stay one step ahead of them. Nevertheless, they refuse to give up, believing that bringing Frank back to the United States is their responsibility regardless of his reasons for entering the competition. The second round of matches demonstrates why Frank is considered one of the tournament's most talented newcomers. He faces stronger and more experienced opponents, each with a different fighting style designed to expose weaknesses in his technique. Rather than relying on brute force, Frank adapts to every situation with intelligence and precision. His years of training under Master Tanaka allow him to remain calm even when facing dangerous attacks. Every successful victory increases his confidence while earning admiration from spectators who begin discussing the mysterious American fighter capable of defeating opponents with such remarkable skill. Even several experienced competitors quietly acknowledge that Frank may become one of the few fighters capable of challenging Chong Li. As the day comes to an end, Ray Jackson celebrates another impressive victory of his own, convinced that he and Frank are destined to meet in the later stages of the tournament. The two friends share a meal, laugh together, and discuss the challenges waiting ahead. However, Frank remains focused on the larger goal. Deep inside, he understands that every successful match only brings him closer to facing the ruthless defending champion whose reputation continues growing with every brutal victory. The Kumite has only just begun, but the path toward the final battle is becoming clearer with each passing round, setting the stage for even greater danger in the battles yet to come. The next day of the Kumite begins with even greater intensity as the number of remaining fighters continues to decrease. Every competitor understands that there are no easy matches anymore because only the strongest martial artists have survived the opening rounds. Frank Dux enters the arena with complete confidence, but he never allows success to make him careless. Before every fight, he quietly focuses on his breathing and remembers the lessons taught by Master Tanaka. His teacher always believed that the greatest enemy of any fighter is not the opponent standing across the ring, but the fear and arrogance hidden inside one's own mind. Those teachings help Frank remain calm, while other competitors become increasingly nervous under the pressure of the tournament. The crowd has also started recognizing Frank's name, and many spectators gather close to the arena whenever his matches are announced because they know they are about to witness extraordinary martial arts skills. Frank's next opponent is far more experienced than anyone he has faced before. The fighter attacks with incredible speed, combining spinning kicks with powerful punches designed to overwhelm Frank before he can react. For several moments, the fight remains evenly balanced as both men exchange impressive combinations. Frank refuses to panic despite receiving several hard strikes. Instead, he patiently studies his opponent's rhythm, waiting for the smallest opening to appear. Suddenly, he blocks a powerful kick, quickly counters with a precise strike to the chest, follows it with a sweeping leg attack, and finishes the match with a perfectly timed knockout blow. The audience immediately erupts into applause as Frank once again demonstrates that intelligence and discipline can overcome aggression. Even the tournament officials begin looking at him with growing respect because very few newcomers have advanced through the Kumite so smoothly. Meanwhile, Ray Jackson continues fighting with his own unique style. Unlike Frank, Jackson relies almost entirely on his tremendous physical strength and fearless attitude. His fights are loud, exciting, and filled with powerful punches that often end matches within seconds. The audience enjoys watching his aggressive approach, and Jackson proudly entertains the crowd after every victory. Although his confidence sometimes borders on arrogance, there is no doubt that he possesses tremendous courage. Frank congratulates his friend after another impressive win, but he quietly reminds him that stronger opponents are still waiting ahead. Jackson laughs and insists that nobody in the tournament can stop him. Frank smiles politely but cannot ignore the uneasy feeling growing inside him whenever he thinks about Chong Li. At the same time, Chong Li continues destroying every opponent placed before him. His fights are frightening to watch because he seems to enjoy causing pain rather than simply winning. During one particularly brutal match, Chong Li defeats his opponent within moments, but instead of stopping after the referee declares victory, he deliberately delivers additional devastating blows to the unconscious fighter. The horrified audience watches in silence while medical staff rush into the arena to carry the injured competitor away. Chong Li proudly raises his fists without showing the slightest sign of regret. His actions spread fear throughout the remaining participants, many of whom begin secretly hoping they will never have to face him. Frank watches quietly from the sidelines, realizing that Chong Li's greatest weapon is not only his strength, but also the fear he creates inside everyone around him. Outside the tournament, Army investigators Helmer and Rawlins continue searching for Frank throughout Hong Kong. After following several promising leads, they finally discover evidence that a mysterious underground fighting tournament is taking place somewhere inside the city. Unfortunately, nobody is willing to reveal its exact location because the Kumite has remained secret for generations. The investigators become increasingly frustrated as every door they open leads to another dead end. Nevertheless, they refuse to abandon the search because they know Frank is getting closer to completing whatever mission brought him there. Their determination slowly brings them closer to discovering the truth, even though they still have no idea how dangerous the tournament truly is. Janice Kent also continues investigating the Kumite for her newspaper. She secretly photographs several fighters and gathers information from anyone willing to speak with her. While spending more time with Frank, she begins understanding that he is motivated by honor rather than fame or money. Frank explains that martial arts are about discipline, respect, and self-control, not violence. Janice finds his philosophy refreshing because it completely contrasts with the brutality displayed by fighters like Chong Li. Although Frank remains focused on the competition, a quiet friendship begins developing between the two, giving Frank brief moments of peace before returning to the deadly arena. As another round begins, Frank demonstrates why he has become one of the tournament favorites. His opponent is a highly skilled kickboxer known for incredible speed and devastating combinations. The match starts aggressively, with both fighters exchanging powerful attacks that excite the crowd. Frank absorbs several heavy strikes but refuses to lose concentration, Remembering Tanaka's teachings, he waits patiently until his opponent becomes overconfident. At exactly the right moment, Frank launches a perfectly executed combination of blocks, punches, and kicks that completely shifts the momentum of the fight. Within seconds, his opponent is unable to continue, and Frank advances once again. Spectators rise to their feet, applauding his remarkable display of technique and discipline. By the end of the day, only a small number of elite fighters remain in the Kumite. Frank and Ray Jackson are both still undefeated, while Chong Li continues looking almost unstoppable. The distance between Frank and the championship grows shorter with every victory, but so does the danger surrounding him. Everyone inside the arena can sense that an unforgettable confrontation is approaching. The remaining fighters know that sooner or later Frank Dux and Chong Li will stand face to face in the same arena. As the tension continues building, the Kumite enters its most dangerous stage, where every match could change the lives of everyone involved forever. As the Kumite reaches its most dangerous stage, only a handful of elite fighters remain in the tournament. Every match now carries enormous pressure because a single mistake can end years of preparation. Frank Dux arrives at the arena with the same calm confidence that has guided him since the beginning, but he understands that the opponents ahead are stronger, faster, and far more experienced than those he has already defeated. The crowd has also become fascinated by the disciplined American fighter who continues winning without showing arrogance or unnecessary violence. Many spectators now whisper that Frank might be the only competitor capable of challenging the terrifying Chong Li. While Frank quietly prepares for another fight, Chong Li watches him from a distance with cold eyes, finally recognizing him as a genuine threat to his championship. For the first time in the tournament, the defending champion begins paying serious attention to another fighter. The next round begins with Frank facing a highly skilled martial artist whose speed surprises everyone in the arena. The opponent attacks relentlessly with spinning kicks, elbow strikes, and rapid combinations designed to keep Frank constantly on the defensive. Instead of matching speed with speed, Frank patiently waits for the perfect opportunity to counterattack. Every movement reflects the discipline Master Tanaka taught him years earlier. The audience watches in complete silence as the two fighters exchange incredible techniques. Finally, Frank anticipates a spinning kick, blocks it perfectly, and responds with a powerful combination that knocks his opponent to the floor. The referee immediately declares Frank the winner, and loud applause echoes throughout the arena. His impressive victory confirms that he deserves a place among the tournament's final competitors. Meanwhile, Ray Jackson also continues advancing through the competition. His aggressive fighting style remains incredibly effective against most opponents, and his confidence grows after every victory. Between matches, Jackson jokes with Frank, insisting that once they both reach the finals, they should celebrate together after defeating everyone else. Frank smiles but reminds his friend not to underestimate the remaining fighters. Jackson laughs, convinced that his strength is enough to overcome anyone standing in his path. Unfortunately, fate has prepared a far more dangerous challenge than either of them expects. The tournament bracket reveals that Jackson's next opponent will be none other than the undefeated defending champion, Chong Li. The announcement immediately changes the atmosphere inside the arena. Spectators become excited because everyone wants to witness the confrontation between the fearless American powerhouse and the brutal reigning champion. Jackson refuses to show fear and confidently walks towards the fighting platform, determined to prove that Chong Li is not invincible. Frank wishes him good luck but cannot hide his concern. Deep inside, he understands that Jackson's aggressive style may play directly into Chong Li's greatest strengths. As both fighters enter the arena, the audience falls silent, sensing that something unforgettable is about to happen. The fight begins explosively as Jackson charges forward with powerful punches that briefly force Chong Li onto the defensive. The crowd cheers loudly because very few competitors have ever managed to pressure the champion so aggressively. Jackson lands several impressive strikes, proving that his confidence is not completely misplaced. However, Chong Li remains remarkably calm. Instead of reacting emotionally, he patiently waits for Jackson to make a mistake. As the fight continues, Jackson becomes increasingly aggressive, leaving small openings in his defense. Chong Li immediately notices those weaknesses and launches a devastating counterattack. His brutal punches and crushing kicks quickly change the momentum of the match, leaving Jackson struggling to recover. Despite suffering several heavy blows, Jackson refuses to surrender. He continues fighting with incredible courage, earning the respect of both the audience and Frank. Unfortunately, Chong Li has no intention of showing mercy. After delivering a series of devastating attacks, he knocks Jackson to the ground with tremendous force. Even after the referee attempts to stop the fight, Chong Li deliberately continues attacking his defenseless opponent. The horrifying assault shocks everyone inside the arena. Medical staff rush forward while Frank watches helplessly from outside the ring. Jackson suffers serious injuries and loses consciousness as officials finally pull Chong Li away. Instead of expressing regret, the champion proudly celebrates another brutal victory, proving once again that he values domination far more than honor. Frank immediately rushes to the medical room where doctors are treating Jackson's injuries. His close friend lies unconscious, covered in bruises and barely able to respond. Janice Kent also arrives, deeply disturbed by the violence she has witnessed. Frank's emotions are filled with anger, sadness, and determination. Seeing his friend nearly destroyed awakens something powerful inside him. Until this moment, Frank had viewed the Kumite simply as a tournament where he could honor Master Tanaka. Now, however, the competition has become deeply personal. Chong Li has crossed every limit of sportsmanship, transforming the upcoming confrontation into a battle between honor and cruelty. Later that evening, Frank quietly reflects on everything that has happened. He remembers Master Tanaka's lessons about self-control, reminding himself that revenge alone cannot guide a true martial artist. His teacher always believed that anger clouds judgment and weakens even the strongest fighter. Frank realizes that defeating Chong Li will require complete discipline rather than uncontrolled emotion. Although he desperately wants justice for Jackson, he understands that entering the ring with hatred could easily lead to defeat. Determined to honor both his injured friend and his late mentor, Frank spends the night mentally preparing for the greatest challenge of his life. As darkness falls over Hong Kong, the army investigators finally receive information that leads them closer to the hidden tournament. At the same time, Chong Li confidently declares that no remaining fighter can stop him from winning another Kumite championship. Frank silently watches from across the arena, knowing that the inevitable showdown is now only one fight away. With Ray Jackson lying injured, the tournament transformed into something much greater than a contest for victory. The next battles will decide whether honor and discipline can overcome fear, cruelty, and overwhelming power, setting the stage for the unforgettable climax of the legendary Bloodsport story. The morning after Ray Jackson's devastating defeat, the atmosphere inside the Kumite is completely different. The excitement that once filled the arena has been replaced by tension and fear. Every fighter now understands exactly how dangerous Chong Li truly is. His victory over Jackson was not simply another win, it was a warning to everyone still standing in the tournament. Frank Dux walks into the arena carrying a heavy heart after visiting his injured friend in the hospital. Jackson remains unconscious, and the doctors cannot guarantee when he will recover. Standing beside his friend's bed, Frank quietly promises that he will finish what Jackson started. However, he also remembers Master Tanaka's teachings, reminding himself that the fight must be won through discipline rather than revenge. With those words echoing in his mind, Frank returns to the Kumite more determined than ever before. The tournament resumes with the quarterfinal matches, where only the strongest competitors remain. Frank's next opponent is a seasoned martial artist known for his exceptional defensive skills and tactical intelligence. Unlike earlier fighters who attacked recklessly, this opponent patiently waits for Frank to make the first move. The fight becomes a fascinating battle of strategy rather than pure aggression. For several minutes, neither fighter is willing to take unnecessary risks. The audience watches closely as every movement carries enormous importance. Frank carefully studies his opponent's footwork before launching a quick combination of punches designed to test his defense. His opponent successfully blocks the first attacks, but Frank immediately changes direction with a spinning kick that catches him off guard. The perfectly timed strike shifts the momentum of the match, allowing Frank to control the pace until the referee declares him the winner after another impressive performance. As Frank advances to the semifinals, Chong Li continues proving why he is considered almost unbeatable. His next opponent enters the ring with confidence but quickly realizes that facing the champion is unlike facing anyone else. Chong Li attacks with explosive power, breaking through every defensive technique placed in front of him. His brutal combinations leave little opportunity for counterattacks, and within moments the fight is effectively over. Yet once again, Chong Li refuses to stop after securing victory. He humiliates his defeated opponent in front of the crowd, laughing while the audience reacts with a mixture of shock and fear. Many spectators begin believing that the defending champion is not simply fighting to win, but to destroy the spirit of everyone who dares challenge him. His reputation grows even darker with every passing round. Outside the arena, Janice Kent continues investigating the secret tournament despite the increasing risks surrounding her. She spends more time speaking with Frank and gradually understands the deep respect he has for martial arts traditions. Frank explains that true martial artists never fight to satisfy their ego or to humiliate others. Every lesson taught by Master Tanaka emphasized honor, humility, and self-control. Janice realizes that Frank represents everything Chong Li does not. Their conversation strengthens her admiration for Frank, and she begins hoping he will become the man capable of ending the champion's reign of fear. Although Frank appreciates her encouragement, his attention remains focused entirely on the tournament and the responsibility resting upon his shoulders. Meanwhile, Army investigators Helmer and Rollins finally discover clues leading them directly to the hidden Kumite. After questioning several local contacts, they locate the building where the secret tournament is taking place. However, gaining access proves nearly impossible because heavily armed guards protect every entrance. The investigators attempt to force their way inside but are immediately stopped by security personnel who refuse to reveal anything about the competition. Frustrated yet determined, they remain outside searching for another opportunity to reach Frank before the tournament ends. Time is rapidly running out, and they know that once the final matches begin, stopping Frank may become impossible. Back inside the arena, the semi-final matchups are officially announced. Frank successfully earns his place among the final four competitors after a series of remarkable victories built on skill, patience, and discipline. The audience now openly cheers for him whenever he enters the fighting platform. Even several defeated competitors acknowledge that Frank deserves his success because he has consistently shown respect toward every opponent. Chong Li notices the growing support surrounding Frank and becomes increasingly irritated. Accustomed to intimidating everyone around him, he cannot accept the possibility that another fighter has become the crowd's favorite. His arrogance slowly transforms into personal hatred, making their inevitable confrontation even more intense. Before leaving the arena, Frank visits Jackson once again. This time, Jackson briefly regains consciousness and struggles to speak through his pain. Although badly injured, he tells Frank not to fight with anger because that is exactly what Chong Li wants. Instead, Jackson encourages his friend to trust the training Master Tanaka gave him throughout the years. Frank quietly nods, understanding the wisdom behind those words. The emotional conversation reminds him that true victory is measured not only by defeating an opponent but by remaining faithful to the values that define a warrior. As Frank leaves the hospital, his determination becomes stronger than ever. The day ends with excitement building across Hong Kong as only a few matches remain before the championship is decided. The audience eagerly anticipates the showdown between Frank Dux and Chong Li, believing it will become one of the greatest battles in Kumite history. Frank knows that his toughest challenge still lies ahead, while Chong Li confidently believes that another championship is already within his grasp. Neither fighter is willing to back down, and both understand that their clash will determine not only the winner of the tournament, but also whether honor or brutality will define the legacy of the legendary Kumite. The Kumite enters its final stage, and the excitement inside the arena reaches an unbelievable level. Only a few fighters remain, and every spectator understands they are about to witness history. Frank Dux has earned his place among the tournament's elite through discipline, patience, and remarkable skill, while Chong Li continues to dominate every opponent with ruthless brutality. The contrast between the two fighters has become the main story of the competition. One represents honor and respect, while the other fights through fear and intimidation. As Frank walks into the arena for the semi-final round, the audience greets him with loud applause. Across the ring, Chong Li watches silently, his cold expression making it clear that he has already decided Frank will become his next victim. The tension between them grows stronger with every passing moment, even before they officially meet in combat. Frank's semi-final opponent is an experienced martial artist who has survived every previous round through intelligence and technical precision. Unlike many fighters who rely on raw power, this competitor focuses on timing, balance, and quick counters. The fight begins cautiously as both men circle each other, carefully searching for weaknesses. Frank refuses to rush forward because he knows one careless mistake could end his dream. His opponent launches a series of fast kicks aimed at Frank's upper body, but Frank blocks each attack with calm confidence. Remembering Master Tanaka's teachings, he remains patient until the perfect opportunity appears. After avoiding a spinning kick, Frank immediately counters with a combination of precise punches followed by a powerful kick that sends his opponent crashing to the floor. The referee counts him out, and Frank officially advances to the championship match. The crowd rises to its feet, recognizing that they have just witnessed another brilliant display of martial arts excellence. After the victory, Frank receives congratulations from several tournament officials and fellow competitors. Even fighters he defeated earlier acknowledge his incredible skill and respectful attitude. Unlike Chong Li, Frank never celebrates by humiliating defeated opponents. Instead, he always offers a hand to help them stand, earning admiration throughout the arena. Janice Kent watches from the audience and smiles proudly, realizing that Frank has become more than just another competitor. He has become the symbol of everything the Kumite was originally meant to represent before violence and cruelty overshadowed its traditions. However, Frank's thoughts remain focused on the final battle waiting ahead. Meanwhile, Chong Li easily wins his own semi-final match in devastating fashion. His opponent enters the ring with determination but quickly finds himself overwhelmed by the champion's terrifying strength. Every strike lands with incredible force, leaving almost no chance for recovery. Once again, Chong Li refuses to stop attacking after victory has already been secured. Officials are forced to pull him away, while medical staff rush into the arena to assist another badly injured fighter. The audience reacts with mixed emotions. Some admire his overwhelming dominance, while many others openly condemn his lack of honor. Chong Li ignores every criticism because in his mind only victory matters. Looking directly toward Frank, he smiles confidently, believing the championship already belongs to him. Outside the arena, Army investigators Helmer and Rawlins finally succeed in entering the tournament grounds after bypassing security. They quickly search through the crowd, hoping to locate Frank before the championship begins. When they finally find him, they attempt to convince him to return with them immediately. They remind him that leaving the military without authorization carries serious consequences and that his career could be permanently destroyed. Frank respectfully listens but calmly refuses. He explains that he has come too far to abandon the promise he made to Master Tanaka. More importantly, after witnessing what Chong Li has done to innocent fighters, Frank believes he has a responsibility to stop him. Although the investigators remain frustrated, they eventually realize nothing will change Frank's decision. Later, Frank visits Ray Jackson one final time before the championship match. Jackson is finally awake, though still badly injured from his brutal encounter with Chong Li. Despite his pain, he smiles when Frank enters the room. He tells Frank that he has complete faith in him and reminds him once again not to allow anger to control the fight. Jackson admits that his own confidence caused him to underestimate Chong Li, but he believes Frank possesses something far more powerful than physical strength. Years of discipline, patience, and respect have prepared him for this exact moment. Frank promises his friend that he will fight with honor and will never forget the values Master Tanaka taught both of them to respect. The emotional conversation strengthens Frank's determination before he returns to the arena. As the championship ceremony approaches, excitement spreads throughout the Kumite. Spectators discuss every possible outcome, wondering whether the disciplined challenger can finally defeat the undefeated champion. Tournament officials prepare the fighting platform while traditional music echoes through the arena, emphasizing the importance of the final contest. Frank quietly stretches and mentally prepares himself, refusing to be distracted by the cheering crowd or Chong Li's intimidating presence. Across the arena, Chong Li confidently performs his warm-up exercises, convinced that another easy victory awaits him. The psychological battle between the two men becomes almost as intense as the physical fight that is about to begin. The final moments before the championship are filled with complete silence as both fighters step into the arena and face each other for the first time. Frank bows respectfully, honoring the traditions of martial arts. Chong Li responds only with a mocking smile, showing complete disrespect for both his opponent and the tournament itself. Their eyes remain locked together while the audience waits in breathless anticipation. Years of training, sacrifice, friendship, and personal loss have all led Frank to this single moment. The championship of the legendary Kumite is now only one fight away, and the greatest battle of Bloodsport is finally about to begin. The championship match finally begins, and the entire Kumite arena falls into complete silence. Every spectator understands that this is the fight they have been waiting for since the tournament started. On one side stands Frank Dux, the disciplined warrior who has earned every victory through patience, respect, and exceptional technique. On the other side is Chong Li, the undefeated champion whose brutal fighting style has terrified every competitor. The referee signals the start of the match, and both fighters slowly begin circling each other. Neither man wants to make the first mistake. Frank carefully studies Chong Li's movements, remembering everything he observed during the earlier rounds. Chong Li, however, smiles with complete confidence, believing that Frank will eventually fall just like everyone else who dared to challenge him. The opening exchange immediately proves that this battle is unlike any other in the tournament. Chong Li attacks first with incredible speed, throwing a series of devastating punches and powerful kicks designed to overwhelm Frank before he can settle into the fight. Frank blocks several attacks and skillfully dodges the rest, demonstrating the calm discipline Master Tanaka taught him throughout years of training. The audience watches in amazement as Frank becomes the first fighter capable of matching Chong Li's speed and power. Every successful block frustrates the defending champion a little more, while every clever counterattack earns louder cheers from the crowd. For the first time in the Kumite, Chong Li realizes that he is facing an opponent who refuses to be intimidated. As the fight continues, both fighters exchange spectacular combinations that leave the audience completely captivated. Frank lands several clean strikes that force Chong Li to step backward, something almost no opponent has managed to accomplish before. The crowd erupts with excitement as the champion begins showing visible signs of frustration. Instead of remaining calm, Chong Li becomes increasingly aggressive, throwing heavier punches with the intention of ending the fight quickly. Frank remains patient, using precise footwork to avoid the most dangerous attacks while responding with carefully timed counters. His discipline allows him to stay focused even under enormous pressure, proving that years of dedicated training have prepared him for exactly this challenge. Realizing that ordinary techniques are no longer enough, Chong Li begins relying on dirty tactics rather than honorable competition. During a brief pause in the action, he secretly removes a small capsule hidden inside his fighting shorts. Without the referee noticing, he crushes the capsule in his hand, releasing a fine powder. The next time Frank moves forward to attack, Chong Li suddenly throws the powder directly into his eyes. Frank immediately cries out in pain as the blinding substance burns his vision. He stumbles backward, desperately trying to wipe his eyes, but the damage has already been done. The shocked audience cannot believe what they have just witnessed, while Janice and the army investigators watch helplessly from the sidelines. The referee fails to notice the illegal move, allowing the fight to continue despite Frank's temporary blindness. Taking full advantage of this situation, Chong Li launches a relentless assault against his helpless opponent. Unable to see, Frank struggles to defend himself as powerful punches and crushing kicks strike his body from every direction. The crowd grows increasingly concerned as Frank absorbs one devastating blow after another. Chong Li laughs confidently, believing victory is now guaranteed. Every attack drives Frank closer to defeat, and for the first time in the entire tournament, he appears completely overwhelmed. Even the spectators who had been cheering for Frank begin fearing that the championship has already been decided. Chong Li raises his fists triumphantly after knocking Frank to the ground, convinced that no blind fighter could possibly recover from such a brutal assault. Lying on the floor in pain, Frank fights to control his panic. Everything around him is dark, and the noise of the cheering crowd makes it almost impossible to determine where Chong Li is standing. At that critical moment, memories of Master Tanaka suddenly return to his mind. Frank remembers a difficult training exercise from many years earlier when Tanaka forced him to fight while blindfolded. During those exhausting lessons, his teacher repeatedly reminded him that true martial artists should never depend entirely on their eyes. Instead, they must learn to trust their hearing, their instincts, and their complete awareness of every movement surrounding them. Those forgotten lessons suddenly become Frank's greatest hope for survival. Taking a deep breath, Frank slowly rises to his feet despite the pain and the darkness surrounding him. Instead of desperately trying to open his burning eyes, he closes them completely and begins listening carefully to every sound inside the arena. The audience watches in complete silence, confused by his strange behavior. Chong Li laughs loudly, believing Frank has finally accepted defeat. However, Frank no longer relies on sight. Every breath, every footstep, and every movement made by Chong Li becomes clearer through his sharpened senses. The years of relentless training under Master Tanaka begin guiding him once again, allowing him to predict attacks without seeing them directly. As Chong Li confidently charges forward to finish the fight, Frank suddenly reacts with astonishing precision. Guided only by sound and instinct, he blocks the champion's attack and lands a perfectly timed counter-strike that surprises everyone inside the arena. The crowd immediately erupts into deafening applause as hope returns to Frank's supporters. Chong Li steps backward in complete disbelief, unable to understand how a blind opponent has successfully defended himself. For the first time in the entire tournament, fear briefly appears on the champion's face. The balance of the fight begins shifting once again, setting the stage for an unforgettable conclusion as both warriors prepare for the final and most decisive moments of the legendary Kumite Championship. The entire arena is stunned after Frank Dux successfully blocks Chong Li's attack despite being unable to see. Moments earlier, everyone believed the championship was already over, but Frank's incredible recovery changes everything. Standing calmly in the center of the ring with his eyes still burning from the blinding powder, he ignores the pain and focuses completely on his remaining senses. Every sound inside the arena becomes important. He listens carefully to Chong Li's breathing, the movement of his feet across the mat, and even the slight changes in the crowd's reactions. Years of harsh training under Master Tanaka have prepared him for this impossible situation. While Chong Li expected a frightened and helpless opponent, he now faces a fighter who refuses to surrender under any circumstances. The audience begins cheering louder than ever, inspired by Frank's determination to continue fighting despite the overwhelming disadvantage. Chong Li, however, cannot accept what is happening. For the first time in years, someone has survived his cruel tactics and continued fighting. Furious that Frank is still standing, the champion launches another series of powerful attacks, hoping brute force will finally end the match. His punches and kicks are as devastating as ever, but Frank has completely changed his approach. Instead of reacting to what he sees, he trusts his hearing and instincts. Every movement Chong Li makes creates a sound that guides Frank's defense. He sidesteps heavy punches, blocks powerful kicks, and counters with precise strikes that surprise everyone watching. The crowd erupts with excitement after every successful exchange, while Chong Li becomes increasingly frustrated. His confidence slowly begins to disappear as he realizes that intimidation no longer has any effect on his opponent. The championship battle quickly transforms into a contest of endurance. Both fighters have suffered significant injuries throughout the tournament, and exhaustion is becoming impossible to hide. Sweat covers their faces as every attack requires enormous effort. Frank's vision gradually begins returning, but he continues relying on the instincts that saved him only moments earlier. Master Tanaka's lessons echo in his mind, reminding him that a true warrior never fights with anger or fear. Those teachings allow Frank to remain calm even while standing against the most dangerous fighter in the Kumite. Chong Li, on the other hand, grows more reckless with every failed attack. His frustration causes him to abandon discipline, making him vulnerable for the first time in the tournament. Watching from the sidelines, Janice Kent can hardly believe the incredible battle unfolding before her. She has witnessed many brutal fights during the Kumite, but none compare to the courage Frank is displaying. Nearby, Army investigators Helmer and Rawlins also watch silently. Although they originally came to arrest Frank for abandoning his military duties, They now understand that this fight represents something far greater than a simple competition. Even they find themselves hoping Frank will succeed. Around the arena, spectators from every country begin chanting his name, creating an atmosphere unlike anything seen earlier in the tournament. Frank has become the symbol of perseverance, while Chong-Li now represents fear and cruelty. Determined to regain control of the match, Chong-Li unleashes his most aggressive assault yet. He charges forward with incredible speed, throwing combinations powerful enough to knock out almost any opponent. Frank absorbs several heavy blows but refuses to lose his balance. Instead of retreating, he calmly waits for Chong-Li to overcommit to another attack. At the perfect moment, Frank sidesteps a powerful punch and responds with a devastating counterattack that catches the champion completely by surprise. The audience explodes with excitement as Chong-Li stumbles backward for one of the first times in the entire tournament. His expression changes from confidence to disbelief, realizing that victory is no longer guaranteed. Sensing the momentum shifting, Frank continues applying steady pressure without allowing emotions to control him. Every punch, kick, and defensive movement reflects years of disciplined training rather than uncontrolled aggression. Chong-Li desperately attempts to intimidate him with angry shouts and reckless attacks, but Frank remains completely focused. The champion begins making mistakes that he never made earlier in the tournament. His breathing becomes heavier, his attacks become less accurate, and his frustration grows more obvious with every passing second. The crowd recognizes that the once invincible champion is finally beginning to crack under the relentless determination of his challenger. As the fight enters its final moments, both men are exhausted and covered in bruises, yet neither is willing to surrender. Every strike now carries the potential to decide the championship. Frank remembers his promise to Master Tanaka, his friendship with Ray Jackson, and the countless years of sacrifice that brought him to this moment. Those memories give him the strength to keep moving forward despite the pain. Chong-Li gathers everything he has left for one final attack, convinced that overwhelming force is still enough to secure victory. The entire arena rises to its feet, knowing the legendary Kumite is about to reach its unforgettable conclusion. With both warriors standing face to face in the center of the arena, the tension becomes almost unbearable. The audience watches in complete silence, waiting to see which fighter will land the decisive blow. Frank remains calm, disciplined, and completely focused, while Chong-Li prepares one last desperate assault fueled by anger and pride. After everything they have endured, the championship now rests on a single final exchange that will determine the fate of the Kumite and decide whether honor or brutality will emerge victorious. The championship reaches its final and most dramatic moments as both Frank Dux and Chong-Li stand exhausted in the center of the Kumite arena. Every spectator is on their feet, unable to look away from the incredible battle unfolding before them. Both fighters are covered in bruises, breathing heavily after enduring one of the toughest matches in the tournament's history. Chong-Li's confidence has disappeared, replaced by frustration and desperation. Frank, however, remains calm despite his injuries. His vision has almost completely returned, but he continues trusting the instincts that Master Tanaka taught him years ago. Every lesson from his childhood now guides his movements, reminding him that a true martial artist wins not through anger but through discipline and self-control. Knowing that the fight is slipping away, Chong Li gathers every bit of strength he has left and launches one final desperate assault. He charges toward Frank with explosive speed, throwing powerful punches and crushing kicks intended to finish the fight once and for all. The attacks are incredibly dangerous, but Frank remains composed. Instead of meeting force with force, he uses perfect timing and precise footwork to avoid each strike. Every missed attack causes Chong Li to become even more frustrated. The champion begins fighting emotionally rather than strategically, making mistakes that he would never have made earlier in the tournament. Frank patiently waits for the exact moment when Chong Li leaves himself exposed. That opportunity finally arrives when Chong Li throws a reckless spinning kick with all his remaining strength. Frank instantly sidesteps the attack and counters with a lightning-fast combination of punches that lands cleanly on the champion's body. Before Chong Li can recover, Frank follows with another perfectly timed kick that sends him stumbling backward across the arena. The crowd erupts with thunderous applause as the once unbeatable champion struggles to regain his balance. For the first time in the Kumite, Chong Li looks completely vulnerable. His confidence has vanished, and he realizes that Frank has successfully overcome every obstacle placed before him, including the illegal attack that nearly ended the match. Refusing to accept defeat, Chong Li rushes forward one last time with a furious scream. His movements are fueled entirely by anger, while Frank remains completely focused. As the champion closes the distance, Frank remembers the final lesson Master Tanaka taught him before allowing him to enter the Kumite. A true warrior never fights for revenge, fame, or pride. He fights to protect honor and uphold justice. Holding those words firmly in his heart, Frank calmly steps aside at the last possible second and delivers a flawless roundhouse kick directly to Chong Li's head. The powerful strike lands perfectly, sending the champion crashing onto the mat with tremendous force. The entire arena falls silent as everyone watches Chong Li lying motionless on the ground. The referee immediately begins counting. 1, 2, 3. Chong Li struggles desperately to stand, but his exhausted body refuses to respond. The count continues until the referee reaches 10 and officially declares Frank Dux the winner of the Kumite. For a brief moment, complete silence fills the arena before the audience explodes into deafening cheers. Spectators from every country stand and applaud the new champion, recognizing that they have witnessed one of the greatest championship fights in the history of the tournament. Frank has achieved the impossible by defeating the undefeated Chong Li through skill, patience, and unwavering determination. After the referee raises Frank's hand in victory, tournament officials present him with the Kumite Championship sword and recognize him as the new champion. Unlike Chong Li, Frank celebrates with humility and respect. He bows to the officials, the audience, and even toward his defeated opponent, honoring the traditions of martial arts that Master Tanaka dedicated his life to preserving. Although Chong Li slowly regains consciousness, he can only watch in silence as Frank receives the respect that true honor deserves. The contrast between the two fighters becomes perfectly clear. One sought victory through fear and cruelty, while the other earned it through discipline, courage, and integrity. Janice Kent smiles proudly as she witnesses Frank's historic victory, knowing she has just seen a story that very few people outside the secret world of the Kumite will ever believe. Nearby, Army investigators Helmer and Rollins finally lower their guard. Instead of immediately arresting Frank, they quietly acknowledge the incredible achievement they have just witnessed. Even they understand that Frank's journey was about much more than simply breaking military rules. It was about fulfilling a lifelong promise and proving the true meaning of martial arts honor. The respect shown by everyone inside the arena demonstrates that Frank has earned something far more valuable than a championship trophy. As the celebration continues, Frank quietly looks toward the sky, remembering Master Tanaka and his late son Shingo. Every sacrifice, every painful training session, and every difficult decision has finally led to this unforgettable moment. He knows the championship belongs not only to him but also to the teacher who believed in him when he was only a young boy searching for purpose. With the Kumite finally over and a new champion crowned, Frank's incredible journey reaches its emotional conclusion, proving that honor, perseverance, and discipline will always be stronger than fear, hatred, and brutality. The legendary battle is over, and Frank Dux leaves the arena as the greatest fighter the Kumite has ever seen. With the referee officially declaring Frank Dux the new Kumite champion, the arena erupts into one final wave of applause. Fighters, officials, and spectators all stand to honor the man who accomplished what many believed was impossible. Throughout the tournament, Frank never relied on intimidation, dirty tactics, or unnecessary violence. Instead, he fought every battle with discipline, patience, and respect for his opponents. His victory is celebrated not simply because he won the championship, but because he restored the true spirit of the Kumite. For years, Chong Li had ruled the tournament through fear, causing many competitors to believe brutality was the only path to success. Frank's triumph proves that honor and self-control are stronger than cruelty and arrogance, making his achievement meaningful far beyond the championship itself. After receiving the championship sword and the respect of the tournament officials, Frank quietly walks away from the cheering crowd. Unlike many champions who enjoy the spotlight, he has never sought fame or recognition. His greatest reward is knowing that he fulfilled the promise he made to Master Tanaka many years earlier. As he leaves the arena, memories of his childhood training return to his mind. He remembers the exhausting practice sessions, the countless hours of discipline, and the lessons that shaped him into the fighter he has become. Every painful sacrifice now feels worthwhile because he has successfully honored the legacy of the man who believed in him when nobody else did. Frank understands that true victory is not measured by trophies but by remaining faithful to one's principles. Meanwhile, Chongli slowly regains consciousness after suffering his first defeat in the Kumite. The once feared champion struggles to accept the reality that his reign has finally ended. Throughout the tournament, he believed physical strength alone could guarantee victory, but Frank proved otherwise. Many spectators who once feared Chongli now look at him differently. His intimidating reputation has been broken, and the respect he once demanded through fear has disappeared. Although deeply disappointed, Chongli silently watches Frank leave the arena, realizing that the new champion earned his victory fairly. The contrast between the two fighters serves as the film's most powerful message. Talent without honor eventually fails, while discipline and integrity create lasting greatness. At the hospital, Ray Jackson finally receives the good news that Frank has won the championship. Despite still recovering from his injuries, Jackson cannot hide his excitement. He proudly tells everyone around him that he always knew Frank would become the Kumite champion. When Frank arrives to visit him, the two friends share a heartfelt reunion. Jackson congratulates Frank and jokes that now everyone will know never to challenge him in a fight. Frank laughs, reminding his friend that their friendship means far more than any championship title. The emotional reunion highlights one of the movie's strongest themes, that loyalty and friendship are among the greatest rewards a person can earn. Janice Kent also completes her journey by witnessing the incredible conclusion of the tournament. Although she originally came to Hong Kong searching for an exciting newspaper story, she leaves with something much more valuable. She has seen firsthand that martial arts are about much more than fighting. Through Frank's example, she learns that discipline, humility, and respect form the true foundation of every great martial artist. While much of the Kumite must remain secret, the experience changes her understanding of courage forever. Frank's actions have inspired not only the audience inside the arena, but also everyone who had the opportunity to witness his remarkable journey. Outside the tournament grounds, Army investigators Helmer and Rollins finally meet Frank once more. Instead of treating him like a criminal, they acknowledge the extraordinary accomplishment he has achieved. Although military regulations still require Frank to answer for leaving without authorization, the investigators now understand why he refused to abandon his mission. They realize that his decision was driven by loyalty, honor, and a promise that meant more to him than personal safety. Their attitude toward Frank changes from frustration to genuine respect, showing how his determination has earned admiration even from those who originally opposed him. As Frank prepares to leave Hong Kong, he takes one final look at the city where his greatest challenge took place. The secret Kumite has changed his life forever, but he remains the same humble person he was before entering the tournament. He knows that becoming champion does not mark the end of his journey. Instead, it represents another step in a lifetime dedicated to learning, discipline, and self-improvement. Carrying Master Tanaka's teachings with him, Frank leaves knowing that the greatest victories are those achieved without losing one's humanity. Ending explained. The ending of Bloodsport 1988 delivers a powerful message about perseverance, discipline, and honor. Frank Dux succeeds not because he is physically stronger than every opponent, but because he never abandons the principles taught by Master Tanaka. Even after being blinded by Chong Li's illegal attack, Frank refuses to surrender or fight with hatred. Instead, he trusts his training, remains calm under impossible circumstances, and ultimately defeats the tournament's most feared champion through skill and determination. His victory symbolizes the triumph of integrity over brutality and proves that true strength comes from character rather than violence. Final review. Bloodsport remains one of the most influential martial arts films ever made. Jean-Claude Van Damme's performance turned him into an international action star, while the movie's exciting fight choreography, memorable training sequences, and inspiring underdog story helped it become a cult classic. Although the film takes creative liberties with its real-life inspiration, it continues to entertain audiences with its fast-paced action and timeless themes of courage, loyalty, friendship, and respect. Decades after its release, Bloodsport is still remembered as one of the greatest martial arts action movies of the 1980s and a defining film in Jean-Claude Van Damme's legendary career.